But the view was disappointing. Everything was as I'd left it. The road still stretched to our left, still busy with traffic meandering toward the encampment ahead. The fisherman's cart still sat upon the grass. The old beech tree was where it had been all afternoon. My view of it was a little different, though, now that I was suspended from one of its branches. The moon was clearer in the sky, the sun almost gone. I judged that only a few minutes had passed since they'd settled my fate. "He's awake," observed the shortest, the one with the obsession for throat-slitting. "I am," I said, the words garbled a little by the noose around my throat. "So can we get on, please? There's a nip in the air. I fear it's going to be a cold night." I'd like to think this sounded courageous. More likely the impression was of fear-maddened babbling.
"He's right," the tallest agreed. "Who wants to stand around in the cold? Let's get it over with."
He turned his attention to me.
"What's your name again?"
"Damasco," I told him for the third time. "Easie Damasco. Remember it when my 7 brothers come to avenge me in the night."
"Damasco," he said. "Do you have any last words? Be civil and perhaps we'll pull on your legs for you."
"I'll simply remind you of my complete innocence. You may not see it, but your gods will, mark my words. Justice will be served in this life or another."
"Ha! Goodbye, Damasco."
There were other things I wanted to say, and they seemed tremendously important. Just then, however, he motioned with one hand to someone behind me. I heard the swish of a lash. The horse complained, and suddenly there was nothing between me and the ground except air. I tried to reach for the noose, forgetting that my hands were tied behind my back. One shoulder cracked unpleasantly, and I gave up the attempt. For the first time, I began to panic. I thrashed my legs, as if this might somehow bridge the gap between feet and ground. I tried to scream, and heard a sound like water burbling, which was strangled off immediately. The pain in my throat was astonishing. It seemed to surge outward, filling my extremities, draining them of strength. Still, I struggled. I knew on some deep level that if I once stopped moving, I'd be dead. But my energy was fading by the moment.
"What do you think you're doing?"
Something went thud above me. An instant later, incomprehensibly, I was falling hard into tall grass. I landed feet first and tumbled backward. Gritting my teeth, I struggled to my feet. I was surprised to find that I'd closed my eyes at some point and opened them again, looking to where I thought the voice had come from. There were a dozen riders, all similarly dressed, but he stood out, like a hawk amongst sparrows. There was little physically to distinguish him. His horse stood a hand or two taller, his cloak and armour were evidently expensive, though devoid of decoration. His skin was noticeably darker than my own olive-brown, his hair and thin beard bound into coils with whirls of wire, his features sharply angled. Though the effect was striking, the characteristics were typical of many a northerner. What told me this was the warlord, Unabridged of Shone, was something altogether more subtle. It was in his bearing, in the way his black eyes darted over us, in the intensity of his smallest gestures. He exuded authority, even at rest. Other than that, his only mark of rank was the deference paid by his bodyguards. One still had his bow hoisted. I followed the angle and saw where his arrow had sliced my noose free at the bow. The 3 fishermen had fallen to their knees, with their brows scraping the roadside. I thought it prudent to follow their example.
"Do we waste men?"
asked Unabridged. Every syllable had weight. The composite effect was like a rock slide.
"Your Majesty, sir."
"Do we waste capable men?"
"No, Lord, but we caught him stealing from the baggage train."
"Then he has use of hands and feet?"
"Yes, sir, only—"
"You,"
he said to me.
"Do you want to be hanged?"
"Truthfully, I find the prospect unappealing," I replied. My throat still